are in a bad way at this moment. 7 straight loss for them last night, a 141-29 loss in Oklahoma City. SGA with his 39 points. Chet had 24. Okongwu had 26 and 14. But there's no Jalen Johnson and no Trae last night. They've lost those 7 straight. The ideas that the team's going to move on have gotten louder and louder. Like the voices are getting louder out there. So I'm wondering in Atlanta, where you are, like what kind of panic situation are we feeling with the Hawks?
Yeah, they got to find an identity at this point. We gotta figure out what is the best next steps moving forward for the Atlanta Hawks. And yeah, the chatter is getting loud. It's getting loud, and the fan base in the city, they just want a clear direction of what's next. What are we gonna do with Trae Young? What are we gonna do with Jalen Johnson? What are we gonna do with the identity of this basketball team? And the reason being is because they've tasted success. You had a Eastern Conference Finals run, and then after that, you kind of tapered off, and you weren't able to get back to that place. But as a fan base, you've shown that we had the pieces. We were good enough to get there, and this is something that's tangible for us. As a fan base, and they want more of the same. And now that you have the results that you have, they're just unhappy. And Trae Young coming in and out of the lineup, and it being kind of a roller coaster of trying to find some middle ground with the team, and just being able to compete at a high level. It's been a lot, and the chatter is getting louder and louder. And me as a fan, like everybody else, I'm curious to see what's the next steps, because I want to see this team get on the right direction. In a perfect world, I would like for Trae Young to be a part of that. But you know how the NBA works. When you get into your eighth season and up, and you don't really get the results that you want, it may be time to look in a different direction. So, I would be happy for Trae to be happy wherever he is, whether that's in Atlanta or whether that's somewhere else, to get a fresh start and get a new opportunity for him to be the great player that he is, and start seeing the results of that. Sometimes things just don't work out, and I don't want to speak for him, and I don't want to speak for the Atlanta Hawks. I know it's a sensitive subject, especially coming from me when we start talking about Atlanta Hawks basketball. But ultimately, I just want to see him happy, and I want to see the Atlanta Hawks be successful at the same time. So if those two things can happen collectively, that would be ideal. But at this point, it's looking like Trae is going to have to find somewhere else to be happy, and Atlanta is probably going to have to move on and create a new identity. But that's not for me to decide. But based on what's going on and me knowing how this business works, that's probably looking like that's going to be the next step.
I mean, look, Mark Stein's named on it. It's not even one of those like anonymous. I will say this though, too, as a fan, it's still pretty vague. It's not, hey, they're definitely going to move him. Well, they're more open now than they've ever been to moving him. So you're still kind of like, okay, but part of that,
Yeah.
and these are some of the other words that are being thrown around, is the idea that Anthony Davis is someone that they're looking at, and that you would pair him up with Jalen Johnson if this is what it's going to look like moving forward. Does
Yeah,
that
sure.
sound good to you?
If he's healthy. Like
Yeah,
we're
well.
we're having a conversation about AD, and he's hurt right now as we speak, and that's become kind of the topic of conversation surrounding Anthony Davis. Like, we know how good he is, we know how great of a player he is when he's available, when he's on the floor. That's just not consistent enough for me to be excited about it as an Atlanta Hawks fan. Obviously the name rings a bell, and that makes you happy, and you see the emergence of Jalen Johnson, and how well he's been able to play, and people in the Atlanta area feel like he's an up and coming star. He's going to be somebody that you can build with and build around as well. But if Anthony Davis is that person, I would just note that he's just not healthy enough for us to be really, really excited for that to be the move. But we could use some star power in the city. And if he's available, like I said, he's a top 5, top 10 big to me in the league when he's healthy. But that is a huge caveat for Anthony Davis. Like I said, we're talking about someone who's in street clothes as we speak. So,
Hmm.
are they real suitors? Does that swing the needle to somewhere where the Hawks feel like this gives us a better opportunity to win basketball games? If he's not on the floor, I don't think so.
And the counter to that too is that the reports are that Dallas would not be interested in getting Trae Young back. So that's you
Yeah.
got to work out some math in that way. This one I
Yeah.
thought was interesting because he's the number one pick. Risache, like that's a young dude. He's averaging
Hmm.
9 in the month of December. But I
Shasha.
also feel like he's been there for 5 minutes. So does that feel like a little premature to even entertain the idea of moving him?
Got to sacrifice something, especially if you're going
Huh.
to go out there and try to hit home runs and try to go get superstar level players. You got to sacrifice something, and you got to be willing to play ball. You got to give something to get something in this league. And I really like the young fella. I think he got a really great potential. He got great potential ahead of him. But if you're trying to go out and get an AD, or you want to have a conversation about the Ja Morants and the LaMelo Balls and these caliber of players in our league, there's going to be some names come up that you're going to have to be able to give. Remember, I was in a trade that brought Paul George to Los Angeles. As a response to that, you lose a guy like a SGA in that conversation. So you see the potential in guys, but sometimes you're in a win now situation where, like, I want to start seeing the fruits of my success and fruits of my labor right now, and that puts you in a position to put these guys on the board. And Ricochet is no different.
Man, gotta learn quick in this league. All right, we're gonna take a
Absolutely.
quick break. By the way, we had some fun comebacks last night in the Eastern Conference. We're gonna look at those two when we.
And the Spurs have been doing a good job of really putting pressure on that narrative and try to put themselves in that conversation. But what we forget as fans and what we forget as media is there are also 28 other teams outside of those two that have those goals as well. And that doesn't mean they're going to stop competing. Look at Cleveland. Cleveland is a team that's trying to find their footing. They're trying to get in the space where they feel like they can compete in the Eastern Conference to match up with a Spurs or a Nuggets or a Thunder team at the end of the season. So they want to compete against those teams, and they want to use those teams as a measuring stick to see where they are in this season at this point. And so this is no surprise to me that they went out and handled business and beat the Spurs and even a Utah team. You have some young talent with Utah. Those are young guys that want to prove themselves, and they know the lights are bright when you're playing against a Wemby, and you want that win. You want to have that notch on your belt to say we did that. And so those have been the two teams to do it. So this thing goes on and round and round through the season. There's going to be a lot of upsets, and there's going to be a lot of games that you thought it was no way that this team was going to beat the opposing team. But this thing happens. This is what professional sports is all about, Bees.
I know the Knicks came in last night after their win in New Orleans, and they play them tomorrow, New Year's Eve. We got to get that San Antonio flu thing going. I don't know how we do that. I don't think there's anything to do.
You're
That
right.
being said, I mean, I tried. I went out last night. I was like, well, this is it. Question, because we got to look for patterns and things. We got to beautiful mind
Yeah.
this. Wemby has started last night, and he started against Utah, and now you're like, oh. Those are the two games they lost, and when he came off the bench, they won. I'm not saying the words
Let's
because
not be
I have
silly
to.
here.
I have a reputation. However, is that a
Let's
weird
not
coincidence? What is that?
let's not be silly.
Don't
So
say it.
forget the 3 seasons of games that he started and had success,
Yeah,
right? Like, forget all of those. But these 2 games,
these two
he should go
games.
back. Like, what are we talking about? These things happen. Again, like I said, this is the National Basketball Association. Everybody are pros. Everybody is capable of beating anybody on any given night, no matter what your schedule is, no matter what your roster is, no matter what your record is. Anybody can beat anybody. So I listen, I'm not gonna put a lot into Wemby coming off the bench and people saying, "Oh, they lost those 2 games." So what do we suggest? Do we
I
suggest that he
know.
goes back to the bench? What are we talking about? He's had so much success as I can't even believe I'm defending this. It's
I
just
mean,
like,
so people are gonna say it. They're gonna say it.
well, people are stupid sometimes.
Well,
People
I
are
know
just
that.
people are just stupid sometimes. But no, I don't read too much into this. I think they just ran into a roadblock, and the better teams on these individual nights were better than them. Simple and plain to me.
Man,
But this has nothing to do with him coming off the bench or being back a starter. No, I'm not weighing in on that.
Wemby, the world's greatest bench player. Yeah, no, it's gonna happen. There's
Well,
gonna be some
he
talk.
he got to come behind me.
Oh yeah, I'm sorry. He's got some time. He's got a little bit
Yeah,
of time.
Vito.
By the way, what would you do? No, like knowing who you are and the legacy that you've secured in this league, what would you do if all of a sudden they decided, you know what, we are going to just start bringing Wemby off the bench? Like, what
I'm
does your brain
protesting.
do with
I'm
that?
protesting.
Okay,
I'm
good.
protesting. I'm going to protest the Same way teams protested against me, saying, "Why is this guy coming off the bench averaging 25 points a game? Why is he
Oh,
coming off the bench?" So if Wemby came off the bench and he's in the way of me of interrupting my six man of the year runs, I'm protesting. This
to
not
die.
fair. It's not right. He doesn't deserve to be on the bench.